Now here's where things get interesting. Montreal's tools and production pipeline wasn't fixed in place, meaning they weren't standardized, which means the production pipeline to produce content wasn't even figured out yet. That's like building a factory but not knowing how to produce a product. They still didn't even make a finalized planet level they could then use as a prototype for the rest of the game. Additionally, the tools to make said planet level weren't finished either. So during this time, from 2013 to 14, they hired out to an Egyptian company called Snappers, but the devs weren't sure how to implement that into Frostbite. Some wanted to use Faceware or FaceFX, and then someone wanted to switch from 3D Studio Max to Maya, and this is after pre-production. By this time it's 2015, and the production is having doubts about building anything with their tools. By the end of 2015, flying and landing on procedural planets wasn't working, so they cut it. That means from hundreds of procedurally generated planets down to 30, they went down to 7 static ones. Now, cutting features in software development happens normally, but of this scale is pretty darn big, and this is after pre-production. This is in its 3rd year of development, and major things like flying your ship and landing on a planet are being cut. Since the animation team was short and in-house, they decided to hire out to studios in Russia, China, India, and other countries. And during this time, the writing and design of the game wasn't figured out yet. Quote, "But with the writing and design team still working until very late in the process, that foundation shifts so much that it makes it very difficult to rely on outsourcing." End quote. So the actual core combat gameplay, single and multiplayer combat, that was fine. That never had a problem. But the story, the cinematics, and the levels were way behind schedule. I'm not sure how a story can be behind schedule, but apparently it seems they write the story last at BioWare. Why does that sound completely backwards? Other problems came up, like from working at 3 studios, the Austin, Edmonton, and Montreal studios, due to time zone differences as well. Quote, "What you see in the final game is writing that has been done in the last 2 years rather than the full 5 years of writing." End quote. Quote, "The writing team, writing the characters and everything, was unleashed too late, just because of too many discussions about the high-level direction." End quote. Quote, "It really wasn't until Mac Walters came on board, and that was very much a reaction to the state of the critical path. He was really brought on board to give it direction and get it into shape." End quote. Quote, "Before that, it was quite rudderless. Some at Montreal saw the directional shift as Edmonton trying to take over their game, while some at Edmonton saw it as them needing to come in and rescue it." End quote. So I want you to keep this little clip in mind, because at an interview in July of 2016 at E3 with Doritos King here, Mac Walters said an interesting rambling sentence.
We are very much in the final stretch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We're coming in. It'll be spring next year.
Yeah.
And right now, I think for us the challenge was, even though we're building on an existing franchise, bringing everything into Frostbite, new technologies, new consoles, we're literally having to rebuild everything again. Wow. So again, that's why it was a bit of a tease yesterday. We want to show assets that look as amazing as possible. BioWare, Mass Effect, we're known for quality. We want to push that. And so right now it's just polish. Wow. Yeah.
That was almost 9 months before release. That means that in the last 1.5 years of development, with the bulk of the work of Mass Effect Andromeda happening in those 1.5 years, during this interview, the game was only half produced. Not half done, because that involved testing and QA and polish, but half produced. This means Mac Walters here is lying. Some said what made the crunch worse than previous Mass Effect games was what the developers called regression. Quote, "We'll put something together and it's been bug tested and signed off and approved," said a developer. We'd say, "Okay, we can now move on from that to the next thing. Well, our backs are turned, what we just put together falls apart." End quote. Here's the classic old leaked video footage in comparison to the final product to show one of the many lack of oversights. In this case, the animation quality has been reduced or completely changed or removed. Quote, "For the last few months of the game, we spent most of our effort just trying to keep it together rather than polishing," said an Andromeda developer, "just trying to stay ahead of how quickly it was falling apart." End quote. Quote, "In game development, it's common for the directors of a team to put together lists of the biggest risks or challenges they think they'll face. On Mass Effect Andromeda, the leads flagged several of these major risks. There was the story, there was the procedurally generated planets, and then there was the animation." End quote. This is pretty difficult to grasp for me. First, they removed the generated planets. Okay, the prototypes were bad. They weren't fun. It wasn't working really well. Okay, great. Get rid of it. And the animation wasn't very good. Okay, people were getting frustrated on the big shift in technology, the tool sets. They were getting fired. All these technology problems. Fine. Okay. But now a story is flagged as being a major risk or challenge. How the heck does a story or whatever not get fixed to work? And this is during production. We're talking about raw ideas to, I guess, actual dialogue scenes here. Can you imagine not even knowing what story you're going to produce in a series or an entire piece of multimedia? I mean, it's like, did you lose the script? Did you not like your characters and go, I'm not so sure about this alien guy? Did you do your work at all? Is it like specific scenes with dialogue that isn't done yet? Is it entire levels? Like, what's going on here? It just seems so backwards to have an unfinished script and to suddenly start basing a game off that somehow. And with that, that's all I really need to know. Once you screw up, not even knowing what your story is while you're in production is ridiculous. Sure, changes can be made at the last minute, little tweaks here and there, but it's astounding. Anyway, you could read the rest of the article if you like. As far as I can tell, this franchise is shelved indefinitely. We're going to find out next year what Dylan is all about. This is one of the children of Casey Hudson. It can't be that bad, but you never know. And just pray that whatever comes out of the Dragon Age team was not hampered by any of this fiasco. So, good luck with that, guys. Just hang in there for the next glorious BioWare RPG or not RPG, whatever Dylan is. And cross your fingers.
Cortez! You're gonna pay for that!